Hello again, everybody. I'm Jim Harris, the host of the Arkyana podcast with our Arkyana Razorbacks, Rick David and Mike Shepard, players from the late 80s, early 90s era that go to darn near every game and analyze this thing every week. You hear them on THV or see them on THV's Hog Zone every now and then, and you'll see them again, I think, this weekend out of Oxford with Mary Dunleavy. And right now they're with me Sunday night, right after the game with Tennessee Martin. I almost forgot who they played yesterday. It was such an open date feeling for me. It was like a practice, Rick. A lot got done yesterday. A lot got exposed. I mean, I think the offense is beginning to sort of have an identity to it now. A good balance going. I know you expect that against a FCS team like Tennessee Martin, but I think what we've seen against Auburn and this game as well since the open date is a nice blend, a nice mix of offense. However, the defense, which of course you guys specialized in anyway, still probably left a lot of fans concerned. They gave up 519 yards, 380 yards in the air. I know Coach Beelam after the game was saying, they got 200 of it late in the ball game against reserves and this, that, and the other. But we know, right off the bat, Arkansas interceptions stopped some pretty good movement by their offense. Kudos to the players for those interceptions. But then again, this is a team that put 4 touchdowns on the board. They ran for one of those touchdowns, just right around the defense. There were a lot of questions. You and I were tweeting back and forth. I guess we want to start out and talk about overall defensive play and the pass defense, since this week's opponent, Ole Miss, is noted for using the air pretty much to set up the run and spread it out. Spread teams seem to give Arkansas a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, first off, Coach Beelam, I think what he was talking about when he was giving his press conference, I guess you could say the one reason why his players love him is because he's always got their back in front of the media. Because when he gets behind closed doors, I'm sure he lays into them. I've been at practice, I've seen him do it, and I've been able to go ahead and see Rob Smith do the same thing. They are demanding coaches, to say the least, but when they get in front of the media, they think that they've got their back, which is what you want. In regards to what I expected relentless play yesterday, because we were talking about this before we got started. If you expect to be a championship team, you've got to be relentless regardless of who the opponent is and dominate. Your goal in football is to dominate your opponent. There's nothing better than physically dominating. And we obviously were a much more physical ball club than Tennessee Martin. But we didn't show it. And that's a concern, because if you want to be great, there's only one way to be great. And it's not to be okay at times. It's to be great all the time. And when you look at the defensive performance, you go, well, what's wrong? You look at the pass defense, and you've got to say pass defense because it's the whole defense. It's a production of lack of pass rush and a lack of defensive coverage across the board. We're giving up things in the secondary in regards to too much space between the receivers and the defensive backs and the linebackers. They're just as guilty. They picked on Dre Greenlaw early. And then just from the standpoint of the defensive line, they're just bull rushing and trying to contain. It just seems like it. Those teams have to work, and it's dancing, and you better be step by step. Shep, your thoughts?
Oh yeah, Rick, you did a great job of voicing overall the defensive missteps or the what's lacking with the defense. I as well expected to come out and see a physical dominance. We had the ability to have impact and have punch and pop against these guys, and I didn't see it. I'm not sure exactly the cause. The first thing that came to my mind when I started looking at it is we do miss our trio from last year.
Absolutely.
Spate, Phylon, and those guys, and Flowers, of course. But those guys, really, I think we're missing them. We have young guys who are promising for the future, and the spaces will be filled. But right now, we don't have that physical dominance to make it happen all the time. I think we're adjusting to that right now as far as a defensive coordinator perspective with Rob Smith. Also, with the defensive line, you got to have some sacks. I was going, where's the pressure?
They had no sacks.
Zero sacks. We
Against
had 2
a
tackles
fairly
for losses.
stationary quarterback.
Yeah. So overall, I think the staff is doing their best right now. We still have to take a step back every once in a while. I think that's what happened. But we're playing some offenses coming up in the crunch here in November, where we have to win 2 out of 3 games if we're going to go to a bowl game. So, yeah, I was a little bit surprised.
So what do you how do you remedy this with you remedy it eventually with recruiting, obviously, but you're not going to remedy it now with new influx of talent. So what's left to do for these last 4 games, as Shep says, they've got to win 2 of these 4 to get into a bowl. 2 are on the road. The next 2 are on the road, in fact. And then Arkansas wraps up with a pretty competitive Mississippi State team that could give them trouble. And
I forgot about Missouri.
And then they end the season with which has turned into an inept Missouri team that, again, suspended indefinitely Matty Mock again, so he won't be a factor. How do you change things defensively for Arkansas going into these 2 games, which are 2 sort of opposite poles of offenses? Ole Miss, it's going to spread it out, try to get it downfield through the air a lot. They don't have a running game, to speak of. Everybody's been excited down there that they've started to run the ball okay. It's come against the 2 worst rushing defenses in the West. And then you're going to turn around and flip the switch and probably put 8 in the box and try to stop a run game and hope you can get some one-on-one coverage, I guess, against LSU. So let's just take Ole Miss right now and say, how do you attack that?
Yeah.
Well, first off, you got to go. I want to back up and talk a little bit about what Mike said. He talked about our fearless triangle that we had a year ago. Those guys were relentless in everything that they did.
Every game.
Every game, you watch the intensity of those guys. And right now, I see one guy doing that on a regular basis. Well, kind of 2. And he made a mistake yesterday in taking a bad angle. But I see Gaines getting after it, and most importantly, Brooks Ellis. Brooks Ellis, when he hits people, people go backward. Dre Greenlaw hits people, they don't go backward. And that's a product of being young, not being in the program long enough. But to remedy the situation, you've got to do your assignments. And I see busts. When you have an inside position on a slot receiver, you don't let him get inside. I mean, that's really it's an alignment game, and it's having an understanding. And that's where the inexperience of Dre Greenlaw shows up. That's why last week, Dre Greenlaw was SEC Freshman of the Week on defense. But the coaches came out and they said he didn't play like the freshman of the week.
He's leading tackles.
It's because every play's going that way.
They're attacking him, and that's what you do.
At least he's making the tackle eventually.
The tackle Pulley got attacked yesterday because he's a true freshman playing in the game. That's what happens, when you're a rookie. You got to put in the time. It takes 2 years, really, if you're not a great player, to kind of figure it out. And those guys are very good players that are going to figure it out, but it's going to take a little time. Get them another year in the system. Mike and I were talking about this on the phone. Jared Cornelius looks so much faster and quicker because you want to know why? He had a year in the program as a true freshman, and he looked okay last year. Now he looks electric because that's what happens in a year, So I think they just got to do their assignments better, and the pass rush has got to be there. I mean, they've got to tighten up the coverage against Ole Miss. That's really what we were talking about. You've got to get where instead of you having a yard between you and the receiver, the secondary's got to be on top of them. Wide on rice. That's what you always think. You got to be right on top of them. And the linebacker play's got to improve at the outside positions. The inside position, Brooks Ellis. He's a stud, man. I mean, I like watching him play. I like watching guys play on the defensive line because that's where we're
Beanham.
Yeah, we're good. We're good up front. They just got to get a better rush, Mike.
Rick, we talked earlier about how You mentioned Cornelius, 1 year difference. There's an emotional, a mental, and a physical maturation that happens from true freshman to the second year. And that's what we're going to see with Greenlaw. So we can't really be too hard on Greenlaw. As far as what we're going to change to remedy this defensive gap that we might see or lack of production this week, I think part of it is, guys, we played down to our competition this week. You're going to see a little more pop and a little more buzz once we get on the field against Ole Miss. That's number one. Number two, I think maybe that effect of these young guys maybe ticking it up a couple of notches. They're learning, they're growing. So I think you'll see that as well. Defensive line, maybe this Tennessee Martin team had it schemed enough that we couldn't really show what we were best at with Beanham and Ledbetter. So that's what I'm thinking. I think we're going to be all right against Ole Miss. I don't think there's a strategy to correct here.
Well, I contended last night on the Hog Zone, I will again, that Arkansas's preparation this week, even if the players didn't know it, was geared toward Ole Miss. And I think that when you didn't see a lot of heavy pass rush, I think they're getting ready for how they're going to quarterback, how they're going to deal with Chad Kelly. They're not going to try to, bring one side blitzes, get him out in the open, get him out to scramble. They're going to contain him like they did the kid from Kentucky, Josh Dobbs. I think you're going to see. That's what I think their game is about. Now, the holes that were available in the secondary, I saw a hole that was never corrected, and I know that coaching staff's too good to not correct it if they really wanted to. I think that they were looking at something different. I think this whole plan for this week has been geared to this coming game, and I think that we have to not hit the panic button that I think the fans want to do it and go, oh gosh, we gave up 519 against Murray. What would Baylor and TCU do against us? Well, they don't play TCU or Baylor, which may be a good thing, maybe not. I just saw TCU. Yeah, they bring some things to the table offensively that Arkansas would have trouble with, just like Texas Tech gave Arkansas trouble. But this week's game's Ole Miss, and you've seen them enough. You guys have seen them enough. I contend that their running game has improved only because the competition they face has not improved, that they face the two weakest run defenses going. And Arkansas has an edge there. They can make them one-dimensional. Chad Kelly may not be Neal. I saw a quarterback on top of his game yesterday. I think he could. Yesterday, he could have taken his game to some SEC teams, and they'd have been pretty pleased with the result. Georgia, probably, for one, would love to have Neal at quarterback throwing the ball around instead of the guys they've been saddled with this year. The guy played well. Did he not play well against Ole Miss? Apparently, statistically, I guess you would say that's true, but that was September 5th. What do you see with Ole Miss matched up against Arkansas's defense?
I think I like our run game, our run defense versus their run game. Their running back isn't very big. He's tiny. In fact, I think he weighs 180 pounds. And I like Brooks Ellis. I like Dre Greenlaw going head-to-head with those guys in regards to the run game. I think we fit well against the run. And yesterday, this is where the relentless component. When they put in their walk-on running back, number 22, I believe was his number, he scored a touchdown on us, and against our first team. And that means they weren't being relentless. That's the problem I have. It's not schematically. It's like, you should be dominating this team. Just because you're Arkansas and you've recruited better than them, and you should win. Schematically, I'm sure we held back a lot what we were going to do this week. But against Ole Miss, what we need to be able to do is have a similar game plan versus what we had against Tennessee. You still have to stop the run. I mean, I don't care who you're playing. You shut down the run. You make Chad Kelly beat you with his arms, and you got an opportunity to beat him. You definitely want to have some games in there. Last year, we did a lot of twisting, a lot of stunts against them. And we were in Bo Wallace's face all night, hurting. They couldn't do anything on us. And I'm hoping the case is that Rod Smith saw something in that offense that tips things off. And that's where I'm hoping they really step up and make some plays on the defensive side of the ball. I'm hoping we play like we do against Tennessee. And it's possible we could. Maybe press a little bit more in the secondary. They're going to have, they'll probably have the best.
They have the best receivers we'll see.
Well,
that we've seen in a while.
They have probably the best receiver performance we'll see. I don't know if they're the best receivers. I'd probably say LSU has recruited better at receiver. A&M, and then Ole Miss.
Yeah, but I don't think A&M's receivers played well.
No, they don't play well.
Christian Kirk.
Yeah, I think LSU's got, believe it or not, the most talented receivers from a recruiting perspective. They just don't throw it to them. Yeah. Why would you when you have 4-Net? I still don't understand if I was a receiver why you'd sign with LSU. But they do. But I think that we're just going to have to tighten things up, and we have to be aggressive.
You mentioned a key item, Rick. Fundamental, if we take away the run versus Ole Miss, which we are so capable of doing.
Absolutely.
It does limit their opportunities, and it gives us a shot. Now, to win the game, our offense has to be productive. So, defensively, I think we can narrow it down and give ourselves a chance with the data. But then the offense has to follow through and be as productive. And that was promising yesterday. We haven't talked about the offense yet. So maybe that's the next segment.
Well, it is the next segment. In fact, it is. This is the end of part one. We will come back and discuss the Arkansas offense and Brandon Allen's outstanding play the last 2 weeks. We didn't have a show last week, so we'll discuss his great overtime finish against Auburn and how they'll deal with Ole Miss's defense, which at times can really disrupt you, and then at other times they can go lax and give up 31 points like they did against Memphis. So we'll talk more about this. This is the end of part one. Click on for part two of the podcast.
That was getting a little